In this update, I'm going to revisit the horizontal and vertical stabilizer. The main reason is because I didn't like this thickness here that I had to end up with on the horizontal stabilizer. And so after doing some searching, I was able to locate some servo mounts that allowed the servo to sit flat. And this is ideal for my situation here, for the simple fact that I don't want a big thick airfoil here if I don't have to have it. And as it turns out, I'm going to show you that I don't have to have it, and I can actually get it the way I want it very easily. In fact, this is the new airfoil. This is the top, this is the bottom. This is actually real light, but it's actually pretty strong. What I have in the front here is a carbon fiber rod, and what I did was I notched the leading edge so that whenever I fold this over, the material actually wraps around the carbon and it creates a pocket for it. You can see that it's sliding back and forth, but it's free enough to move. So the idea here is I can put this together, and whenever I glue this up, I'll use Gorilla Glue, and that's going to tighten up any loose area within my surface. Okay, here's the servo, and it has two screws. You take out the two screws, and then this will lift off. So you have to be able to get to the two screws, and the servo has to come straight up. So I had to deal with a fairly large hole in the bottom of the horizontal stabilizer. However, I did size this down slightly and got it down to an opening that's like this. So if I take out the insert, you can see that is a little bit smaller, but it's still big enough for the servo to drop in. So you can see there, I mean, it's just, matter of fact, it's a tight enough fit that it will sit there, but it will fall through. So I made this as small as I could. I also made a door or a cover that's going to go over it, and it's actually a inlay fit, and you can see that it actually fits pretty good. So what I'll do is I'll mount the servo and then put this over it, and then I will put a small piece of covering over this so it'll look like a hatch. And the only thing that's going to be sticking out, of course, is going to be the servo arm. So that's how I went about changing the airfoil on the horizontal stabilizer to go from this to this. So you can see there's quite a difference. Now, more about this new design. If we look, you can see I have some notches, and these notches are set up to accept popsicle sticks. This is the bottom. This is where the hole is that the servo's got to pass through. So I'm going to be epoxying in the popsicle sticks, and there's 3 of them. Notice I've got one on either side of the servo opening here because I figured that's going to weaken this area, and so I definitely wanted to give it some support. Also, I put one back here. The other thing is there is going to be a spar in here, and this spar, it gets cut out of a piece that's machined, and it has a notch on this end and a notch on this end. Now the difference is this is the small end, this is the large end. So that means down here, this would be the small end, that the large end. The reason that I had to do it this way is so that with this foam, it doesn't take much for it to wiggle or to move. And so in order to ensure that I get a straight spar, I need to cut it big enough I can hold it, and that's what the screw holes are for. But I've made it in such a way that, and put the screws in such a way that whenever I cut it, I'm not going to be hitting a screw hole with the knife. So therefore, I will get a straight and true spar if I put it up against something and trap it before I put my straight edge on it and cut it. So in order to cut it, it's going to be trapped like that, and then I will put this down and make the cut. And again, there's a notch on this end, a notch on this end, and if I take the X-Acto blade and hold it straight and make the cut, then I'll wind up with 2 straight tapered spars. Now, in my surface here, I have some notches, and what I need to do is draw a line across those notches. You can see I've already drawn it here. Then you take and glue the spar in over the black line. And you would do this after these popsicle sticks have been glued in place. And you do this while this is still flat. This will ensure that the bottom of this stays flat. Then the next thing I'm going to do, go back to the mock-up here. Notice that right now my carbon is sliding back and forth. Now again, this was just a mock-up, so it was more to see if all of this was going to line up and work, and of course it does, so that's a good thing. Whenever I go to glue this up, I will glue the bottom parts and the spar with epoxy, the trailing edge with epoxy. Then I will go ahead and fold this over and make sure that everything is lining up and put some weight on it. Then I will remove the weight, open it up, and I'll be using Gorilla Glue. So I'll put some Gorilla Glue, I'll coat the leading edge here with Gorilla Glue, and then of course lay my spar into it. Now you don't need to use a lot of Gorilla Glue, just very thin skim coat basically. And then fold this over. I will be putting Gorilla Glue on the spar and Gorilla Glue on the trailing edge. Then I will fold this over and put weight on it. And I will weight it and make sure that it's flat, and then leave it set until the Gorilla Glue cures. I have some aluminum tubes, and you can see them there. There's aluminum tube that was actually glued on into the horizontal stab. That would have been this. Well, I'm trying to save as much weight as I possibly can, so I'm eliminating this, still using the carbon fiber, but I've reinforced the areas here, and here's some more of the washers, but you can see that it will actually add a lot of support to the joint between the foam and this carbon by having these larger circles. So let me pop these out, because they are a machine fit, if you will. You can see that I have a hole that's recessed, and then I simply have these plugs that I'll epoxy these in place just like that, so they recess down, and then that'll be the first set, and then I'll have a second one that goes on top of it. So I'll wind up with 2 on each fin. Now I didn't want to enlarge this and make it a larger surface out here, for the simple fact that this has to curve, and if I connect these 2 with a piece of wood, then this won't curve. So that's why I've kept the circles fairly small. The vertical stab is going to have a curve to it. It's going to have an airfoil, and if I use a straight piece here, this would not be able to flex and bend. You can see that it's actually able to curve no problem, but yet I still have the strength that I need for here. And now this would be the top. Again, notice the curve that I have, and notice it on the bottom side. And now this would actually fold over, because this is the leading edge, so this is going to go under and go out the bottom. So let's turn it and let's put it here. And now you can see that I have the airfoil there. So again, that's the bottom, and that's the inside of the bottom. So again, this is going to be straight. And if you look at that, you can see that those tabs are actually holding that straight. So a lot of work has gone into this vertical and horizontal stabilizer, and I think my efforts are going to be well worth the time that I've spent with the process of machining all these parts and getting everything ready to go together. So be patient. Got more stuff coming, but right now it's a slow go because of the rework with the horizontal and vertical stabilizer. It's cutting the leading edge pocket. This is actually going to be the location where the carbon fiber is the leading edge. And now it's going to cut out both the left and the right horizontal stabilizer. Start at the tab. Put in the 2 tabs, that would be the bottom. And now we're going to put in the 2 tabs for the top. Notice also the curve, which will be the same radius as the vertical pin. Here's a look at the inside of the stabilizer. This would be the right side. Notice the servo pocket, the center spar, the trailing edge, which doesn't go all the way to the end, and this is just because this is a mock-up, this was a scrap. All this is just to show you how this thing actually goes together. Popsicle sticks have been inlaid and glued in place. The spar been glued in place over the notches, and the leading edge would be glued in place using Gorilla Glue. The fold will actually be done with Gorilla Glue, so there'll be a little bit of Gorilla Glue put on the leading edge, on the trailing edge, and on the spar, and then we simply fold this over, weight it down, and let it sit. Also, where the servo is, this here will be cut out after this thing is glued together.